All right, peace, y'all. It's your homeboy Luvva J, Jose Gutierrez Jr. And what had happened was it is April 27th, 2021. And what a treat today. I really am excited about today's show and the gift we have and having been able to make this acquaintance here because the artist who we have on today, this man who we have on the show today, is lauded by those who know, who've been around to witness lyricism and the cleverness, the lyrical wordplay, the competitive wordplay, also a competition MC, a battle MC, battle tested and approved. And so we have a former American recordings artist where he released his first album. This is my first album. Is this my first album?
Yes, sir. This is my first album. I wanted it to be just flat out there.
And he had another album out, and he's got more work coming. We're going to talk about. But he had another album which was material that we should have heard a long time before. We're going to talk about this on No Sleep Recordings. He also had. Let me make sure I have the title exactly right. These are my unreleased recordings or
Yes,
songs.
sir.
Okay, okay. So from Queens, New York, one of our heralded boroughs and parts of the city. Uh, so many dynamic MCs. He's one of them. Kwest The Madd Lad. Thank you, Quest, for being with me today.
Thank you for having me, bro. Appreciate it.
Man, well, we appreciate you because you left an indelible mark on hip hop with one single for those who were national. Well, one single, it struck people. I'm just speaking for me and on behalf of people who aren't here to enjoy this conversation with us. It really made a dent. And it was at a time when, of course, Tribe Called Quest, your cats from right in the area, and
hmm
Mobb Deep was coming out, and Notorious B.I.G. was coming out, and just the end of the golden era. And I guess I'll just get into this in a moment. But
Okay.
before we do, I want to know, how are you doing? How's life for you? Just share a little bit with the people about the status of Kwest The Madd Lad, please.
Bro, I'm maintaining, trying to stay COVID free and all of this, madness is going on. Like I said, I always tell people it's like we as MCs back then, the creativity and the rhyming, and we always wanted to reach and rhyme about different stuff and wanted to rhyme about stuff that people never had heard of. And we used to, a lot of my peers and people I was cool with, we used to sit around and talk about stuff like this, because it was in movies. Like, oh, the world's ending and this disease is gonna come, like 12 Monkeys type of thing.
Yeah.
And now we literally live in a 12 Monkeys type scenario, bro. Give or take a couple of different things that have happened, but dude, it's crazy. The last year has been, it's crazy, man. It's been really crazy, but I'm still good. I'm good. COVID free. Like I said, I lost a couple of my people, a couple of really close friends I lost, and a couple of extended family members I lost, a couple of extended family, but all in all, most of my people are good. They got tested, they getting vaccinated, and they're just living their lives and trying to do their thing, man. So it's been, I'm not gonna say a struggle, but it's been a little hectic, and especially music wise, it putting a halt to people going in the studios and live shows and DJing and everything. It put a halt to a lot of things, but I'm glad to see that people were still in their homes and going to like the studios that they trusted, people that they were affiliated with, still making music. And I tried to get back into it after everything calmed down a little bit out here. And, like around July, August, I got up and I'm like, bro, I want to keep making music because we had just put out, maybe 2 years before that, we had put out my third, I don't call it an album, my EP called Spitter.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to continue that. And we were actually talking about doing the second part around this time last year. And then this hit and everything got put on hold. But now that everything is easing up a little bit and, the restrictions are a little less and people can travel about a little, not so much super freely, but can travel about a little more freely, that's back on the back burner. That's back on the burner. So
Good. Well, good. That's exciting to hear because I know you have a lot to say still. I know there's a lot inside of you from your stepping away from our culture as an artist. I know it's inside of you, pumping in your blood and veins, but I mean, people haven't seen you. So first, I just want to send, peace upon your family and your friends who are no longer with us. And
Was, bro.
I heard about New York and know some people from your borough who experienced a heavy number of losses, throughout the whole state and city too, but definitely some people from Queens and stuff. So just that hits home, man, and it's hard to. This is unforeseen, and it's
Mhm.
nothing. It's like once in a life, once in a century type of situation, and we just happen to be alive during it. So I'm glad
Yeah,
you're hanging in there.
yeah, bro. Because like I said, this was something that if you had told us 5 years ago this was gonna happen, it would have been like, yeah, okay, that's bullshit. But it got thrust upon us, and we as just regular citizens, we couldn't do anything about it. We just had to, pull ourselves up by the bootstraps and slap on the mask and stay 6 feet away from people and stop touching our loved ones and people that we normally would interact with, and just, try to get back to not normalcy, but try to maintain some semblance of our daily lives. And it was a struggle, but it's happening slowly but surely.
I'm glad we're both here, still standing, still breathing, and moving forward. Everybody can't say that, so we're very fortunate. We're both here. Um, and thank you for the update on your what's been going on. Because life, I mean, again, we're lucky to be here. We're fortunate. It could be
No,
anybody. So
that's
um,
true.
I wanted to kind of get. I want to go a few places here, but I want to start with your story, and let you talk a bit about your relationship on American recordings. But I want you to talk a bit about the process of making 101 Things to Do with Your Girl, and that
Mhm.
being an impactful single, and then nothing. Like, we were really looking for the album in 1994. We were looking for it. We were looking for, like, well, okay, because I believe you're on the cover of Rap Pages. You had some
Yeah,
nice notoriety. The Rap Pages is a unheralded, unsung magazine that people. I mean, if you can find
definitely.
archives of that magazine, please do. That was a very formidable with any hip hop magazine.
Very.
And you were right on the cover. And so you talk. Tell what was that like leading up? How did you even get signed to American? What was the process of that? Did somebody walk you in or coach you through it, or did they pick you up out of nowhere?
I was in the New Music Seminar Battle for World Supremacy back in 90-91, if I remember right.
Is that with
And
Fresco?
yeah,
With
no, it wasn't the
Fresco?
one with, it wasn't the one with, was it the one? No, it
Is
was,
it
I
right?
think Flush was the one after me.
Oh, okay, okay,
Tretch was in it
okay.
before he became known as Tretch, when he was a treacherous MC, before Naughty by Nature even came on the scene, he was in it.
Okay.
LA Star. I don't know if you remember LA Star, female MC. She
Yeah,
was on
yeah,
Profile Records, had a record called Fade to Black. She was in it.
yeah. She used to rock the
Uh,
truck jewelry in her ear and the big
yeah,
ear stuff.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
There were a couple of MCs that were formidable in it. And as far as I know, I don't even remember how I got picked up to be in it. I guess just because I was going around the city at that time, battling in different circles and ciphers in the parks and going to different clubs and rhyming in front of clubs, rhyming in the clubs, and people started hearing about my name. And I think I got the call. Somebody called me. It's like, yo, do you want to be in the battle? I didn't even know what it was about. I knew what the seminar was about, but I didn't know it was going to be on such a major stage. So I remember showing up to the Lyric Theater on 42nd Street,
Hmm.
and I went in, and I was prepared, because everything I was doing was basically, when I battle, it's all off top. I don't do written rhymes in battles.
Right.
My thing was, I like to look at you head to toe
Mm-hmm.
and just try to pick you apart. And I don't know who was doing it back then, if any MCs were doing it back then, but that was my thing. It's like, okay, if you got on a funny hat, I'm gonna talk about your hat. If you got on some busted sneakers, I'm gonna talk about your sneakers. And go so on and so on. You're going on and going on. And I didn't win. I think I flubbed one of my lines, and I remember the judges were Rhyme Syndicate, Ice-T, Lord
Oh,
Finesse, and a bunch of Rhyme Syndicate, and I think one of their boys won. I don't think it was any cheating or any favoritism on their part, but I know one of their people won. I think his name was Kid Jazz, if I remember right.
okay.
He
Okay.
won, but Dan Charnas, who used to write for The Source, I know you know the infamous Dan Charnas.
Well, he has a great book, The Big Payback, I
Couple,
believe.
a
Yeah.
couple, bro.
Yeah. Go
He
ahead. Go ahead.
saw
I'm
me at
sorry.
the seminar. No, you good. He saw me at the seminar and approached me outside, and I knew the name, but I didn't know the name big time. I just knew, because I used to look at the source and see writers and whatnot. I'm like, okay, this dude wrote a decent article about such and such, or this dude wrote a decent article. And he approached me and was like, yeah, I think you're dope. Your demo came across my desk at Profile, and I'm like, I remember doing a bunch of songs and putting them together, and I remember sending them out, but I didn't remember what labels I had sent them to or whatever. And I'm like, I don't know how he got a copy of it, but he was like, I liked a bunch of the stuff. He said, you're different. You're on some other. He said, you still trying to keep it funny and but you're lyrical and you're savvy with your pen too. So do you want to do you want to eventually make a career out of this, or it's just something you doing just for fun? And I'm like, no, bro, I definitely thought about doing, having some kind of career, because I've always had a thing with words, and I always like reading and writing and just putting words together and everything. Ever since I was a little kid, I always had a penchant for creative writing and everything. So we hooked up. We started doing demos in his house, and at first the thing was to try to get me a single deal or something at Profile.
Mm-hmm.
It never happened. I don't know what happened to powers that be. It never materialized. But maybe a year or so after me and him starting to work together, he calls me and he says, I got an offer from Rick Rubin to go work at his new label, because he left Def Jam. He went to the West Coast and he started a label called Def American. I'm like, okay, Rick Rubin.
Right.
Hip hop heads know what that name. That name is synonymous with. You feel me? So I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, this is a good look. I said, okay, you go do your thing. If you still want to mess with me or whatever, once you get established, let me know. He left here. My whole demo making thing didn't really stop. I was still working with, unknown producers and still doing songs and still doing shows, like talent shows and battles around the city. This went on from like 91 to like maybe late 92, early 93.
Mm-hmm.
He got back in touch with me after about a year. I thought he had totally forgot about me, but I was still rhyming and still battling and doing whatever. He gets in touch with me and goes, do you want to still make an album? And I'm like, yeah, of course. Well, of course. I haven't been doing anything but rhyming and everything. I worked a job at the post office in between. I had to get some bread. So I was working at the post office for maybe about a year in between that, in between going to battles and rhyming on the weekends and everything. I held down a job at the post office working overnight. And I was still at the job, if I remember right, but I wasn't permanent. I was still a temp. So they started letting a bunch of temps go, and I think I was let go in like the second or third wave of them letting people go. Maybe a couple of weeks after he had spoke to me, so I'll reach back out to him. I'm like, "Well, I'm free. Let's do this." He secured a budget for me to do a single. He just wanted to do a single. I think he got me like 5 G's to do a single. He said, "Quest, just do a couple of songs. You pick your producers. You do who you want to work with. It's not much, but is what we can give you right now." I didn't know anybody in the industry. I wasn't really one of those going up to this person or that person and asking them, "Yo, dude, I can rhyme. You put me on," because everybody was doing that. I'm like, I've always been really laid back and just self-sufficient. So the dudes that I knew that produced, and I have beats that I have been rhyming to already and that I liked, and even me I dabbled a little in production. So I put together maybe 6, 7 songs off of that $5,000 they gave me, and I sent him all the songs. He calls me back after about a week and was like, "You did all of this on $5,000?" I'm like, "Yeah, bro." He was like, "I'm going to Rick." He said, "We need to sign you." He said, "Because if you can do this with this little bit of money, I can imagine what you do." I said, "Yeah, and there's been ideas floating around in my head ever since I first met you that I wanted to put out that I didn't think people would be receptive to, but I told you I'm in my own lane." I said, "I always wanted to be different and do stuff that set me apart from other MCs." Like I had a song called Anastasia, one of the songs he liked. I don't know. I don't know if I can curse on you. Can I?
Yes.
Okay. I'm trying to keep it keep it PG, but okay, I'll go a little off.
I can edit it for our radio show when we broadcast it. I can edit it out.
Tony D had put out a beat tape or a beat album, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
That same album had what will become the basis for OPP. One of the beats on there was one of the beats that became the basis for OPP.
Mm-hmm.
The whole same Michael Jackson sample and everything, just flipped a little bit different way, but it was still sounded the same. I heard a couple of beats on there, and I'm like, you know what? I'll go in, I'll use a couple of these beats and just use them for my demo, because it wasn't like he just put it out there and said you couldn't rhyme on them.
Yeah.
The song Anastasia was basically about me going to a club, meeting a girl, us going back to my apartment, us having sex the same night, one night stand. Then the next day I wake up and I feel funny. So I'm like, I hear a little voice, and it's my dick running around on the floor on fire because she burned. So it's me having a conversation with my dick, so to speak, and him running around here, me being burned, and her burning me, and I'm like, holy shit, this is like this. He heard it and he just was like, bro. He said, "This is incredible." He was like, "This is." He said, "Are you gonna give me more stuff like this?" I said, "That's where my mindset is." I said, "I like to do the whole shock value, unexpected thing, because people were doing it, but they weren't doing it to the point where it was like, holy shit, did he really just say that, or did he really just do that?" I'm like, yeah, he really did. That's where the whole Mad Lad part of my name comes in, because you didn't know what to expect from me.
Let
So,
me. Oh, go ahead.
mm-hmm.
Well,
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I want you to continue. I don't want to interrupt, but I have to say that's one of the features about you that really turned on thinkers. Everybody who loved you as a rapper who was like on your track, they were like intellectual kind of thinkers. Not only that, but they were digging your imagination. Like it had no bounds to it from what we heard. Just a little bit we got. It was like, okay, he's way out the box. There is no box. There's no box.
That's how I always wanted to be. Like, I mean, at the time I started rhyming in ninth grade, like 80, 85, 86. Biz was just coming out. Juice Crew was real big. KRS was real big. Slick Rick was real big. And those are the dudes that I kind of sort of took inspiration from, especially Biz. And then later on down the line, his brother Diamond Shell, Slick Rick. I always had a sense of humor, and it was always a bugged out ass sense of humor that I had. So I'm like, let me see if I can incorporate a lot of this into my rhyme, into the stuff that I wanted to do. And when I sat and, smoked my weed and then just sat back and just formulated, I'm like, okay, yeah, this is stupid, but I'm going to write about it. I said, I'll see if people like this stupid nonsense that I'm going to write or not. I said, we'll see if there's people out here that have, what's up, doggy? There's people that have the same kind of warped sense of humor that I had, because Biz played a big part, because I thought that was dope. Slick Rick with The Moment I Feared and the stories he told, I always thought that was dope. I'm like, if you're gonna tell a story and make this shit so crazy and so creative that people will be like, yo, this dude really can rhyme. It's like he's not only being lyrical and spitting the lyrical spiritual miracle thing that was out back then. He's telling a story. He could tell a story with the best of them. So those are the dudes I looked up to and that I liked. And like I said, he heard it. He came. Did he come back here? No, he didn't come back here. He sent for me to come out there. Around he sent for me to come out there. Okay. It's my first time being on a plane. kid from South Jamaica, Queens. Had never been nowhere except in the 5 boroughs or maybe down south a couple of times. I'm on a 4 or 5 hour plane ride going to LA, and I'm just like, yo, this is dope. Okay.
Are you
I get out
solo?
there.
Did you go by yourself or you have
Yeah,
somebody with you?
by
By
myself.
yourself? Okay.
First time I flew, I was by myself. I was scared to death. They had always told me when you flying, chew gum. Sort of, first few times you flying, chew gum, yeah. So it don't put, dude, I think I chew like 3 packs of juicy fruit.
On one way.
Yeah, I think I chewed like 3 packs of juicy food, and I'm like, the takeoff and the landing were the worst parts because I'm like, the takeoff was just, and then the landing was like, once I got on ground, I was straight. I got on ground and I was straight, man.
This is
We started
Tadashi
working
too.
on songs. Mhm.
Oh, I was just saying, this is my dog Tadashi. He just joined us, but
What's up?
I was gonna say I love you mentioned Diamond Shell and the Biz and Slick Rick. You know, all these fabulous storytellers, because it reminds me, like in Master Ace, people who are courageous
Yeah,
enough to tell a story that's a fun story. It's imaginative. You know, everything in an era where keeping it real didn't mean it had to be like a violent struggle story every time. You know, it was like a willingness to go into fairy tale land or imagination or a some theme that was original, and
yeah,
that's important too. That was a requirement at that time. You had to be original at that time.
yeah. Because I mean, I wasn't gonna like there's songs on my album that delved into like street stuff, selling drugs and stuff like that. But I wasn't doing none of that. I sold a little bit of weed every now and then, but I wasn't in the streets like that and carrying guns and wilding out. I was just a typical dude running around enjoying hip hop, loving it for what it was worth. And I was a dancer with the backpack and the fisherman hat with the buttons on it, and going in the city and hanging out till 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning and just enjoying what because hip hop had went into the hip house phase, and dude, I danced and I was doing my thing. I wasn't a thug. I wasn't a hard body, but I still enjoyed all of that.
Right.
So I wanted to be me in the beginning, and once I got my foot in the door, I'm like, what? I can show people that I can rhyme about anything. Hence the 125 pennies for your thoughts, and hence the damn, and hence Herman's Head, the latter part of the second part of my album where I went more into like the street stuff. I just want to show people I have versatility, and that's one of the things that Dan liked about me. So when we sat down and started formulating the album, he asked me what direction I wanted to go. I said, dude, I just want to let it go. Whatever comes to my mind, if y'all like it, I'll do it. I'll throw the idea out there for you. If you don't like it, you let me know and I'll scrap it and try to come up, because like I said, me just being out there and being in Cali for the first time and being just so open and overwhelmed with everything that was happening, dude, my mind was just ablaze with creativity. So anything I thought, I was like, I hear a beat and okay, this is a slow flowing track. Let me see what I could think about. The ideas would come. And most of the stuff, like I said, I was a freestyle. I was always freestyling off the top of the head. A lot of that stuff was, like I told people in the other interview, 95% of the album that I was all off the top of the head. And I just freestyle the beginnings of it, get down maybe the first verse or two, and then I might write some of it if I felt the need to sit down and elaborate and write. But most of it was off the head. Like 101 Things to Do While I'm With Your Girl became an off the head beat. I mean, an off the head song.
Wow.
And sent me the track for it. And I like the fact with the scratch, because the track he did at the time, people weren't doing that, like incorporating scratch. And it was like, he gave me a beat that sounded like something you would do in a park jam, with the live scratching. It was like you were pulling records back and forth and just throwing records back and forth. So I'm like, dude, this is dope. He played me the track. And I remember he was in New York at the time. If I remember right, he was in New York at the time, and he had played me for the track for maybe like 1 or 2 times, and I was in the booth, and he said, "See what you can do with it."
And
it just came.
Who's the producer?
Dan Charnas.
Oh, Dan produced it?
Yeah, Dan produced
100
Things. Yeah.
So he's an author, editor, writer, and a producer, huh?
Yeah, bro.
I didn't know that. Wow.
Dan has beats. Dan did a few beats on the album.
Oh wow.
Yeah, either he did a few of them or we co-produced some of them. Yeah, Dan Happy, like I said, he contributed to a few of the beats on my demo when we first started packaging the demo to send to American. He did a few of the beats on there. And I don't know if that had any bearing with me getting signed to American because he was the A&R slash producer, but it helped. It probably did help. It couldn't hurt. So he played me the beat for 101, and it was like, he said, Quest, just listen to it. I let them play it a couple of times, and I'm like, I just started talking in the beginning of it. Yo, this is Quest. And all the brothers out there, you know how it goes. And it was like, I'll fuck them. And I just jumped into the beat because the beat sounded so bouncy.
Yeah.
That's why my style on the beat is like, no, this may sound wild, messed up, raw, shady. If you and your girl ain't tight, you're out, your lady. You better get her in check because it only takes one raw move to make me get right. I was rhyming to the drums.
Okay.
Like the I was trying to rhyme to the drums, and after I spit the first verse, he had them stop, and he was like, "Can you keep doing that?" And I'm like, "Yeah." I said, "I think I can." I said, "Because I like the direction it was going." And he was like, "This is." He said, "You never." I said, "Well, how would I have ever heard this? This is the first time you're playing it from me." He said, "Dude, that was incredible." And I said, "I think I could keep going along the same vein." And we laid down the verses, and then the hook. I always Let me preface that I grew up in a house with a lot of music being played. My mother and my uncle, rest their soul, always played me a lot of different music when I was growing up: rock, soul, funk, jazz, R&B, gospel, blues. So my uncle was a big Michael Jackson fan. He loved the Jackson Five and all of them. And when the brothers did their offshoots and did their solo album, he was into them too. And I remember when Jermaine Jackson's "Don't Take It Personal" came out.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what it was about that song. I always thought that was a dope song. Like, don't take it personal, take the bitter with the sweet. And it clicked, and I'm like, okay, if you're rhyming about messing with somebody else's girl, what's the best way to tell them you don't want no beef with them? Like, okay, don't take it personal.
Right. You just
And
snatched that up and brought it over to your rap. Okay.
because we were gonna try to sample it, and he was like, bro, he said we will have a time and a half trying to sample that record back then, because the old sampling thing was going through its phase with everybody suing everybody. The
Right.
sampling wasn't even 10 years old back then. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So sampling stuff back then, especially with what had happened with Biz,
Yes.
and then the following lawsuits with everybody people's that records had never been played for like 30, 40 years except for at a party. All of a sudden, you taking 3 seconds of it, and they came out the woodwork like, "Oh, you took my record, I want $100,000." Like, bro, your record only got played in basement parties and juke joints for the longest. Now all of a sudden, you want all this money because we making you relevant again? Like, come on,
Hey,
bro.
right.
So
That and
he's
you
like,
were caught, you were right in that era because that happened right when you started
yeah,
recording. Biz got
yeah.
snatched up. Yeah.
And I'm glad that I was with Warner, Deaf American / Warner, because Warner had clout, and Warner had a lot of power to get a lot of those samples on my album cleared for
Mm-hmm.
little. I'm not gonna say for no money, but for little money, or they worked their magic and got a lot of those samples cleared. But he was like, "Why don't you just sing it?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm not a singer." He said, "Just sing it." And I just, don't take it personal. He said, "We'll clean all of that up in editing and make sure." So I was like, "Okay, cool." When people heard the record, I didn't think it was going to get the response it got. And like I said, I still don't see why people gravitated toward that record. I think it was because it was just, holy shit, is this dude really talking about taking other people's girls and like not really having no pity on it? And then the record, the beat is dope, and he's flowing, and it's like he's not being whack on it. He's actually flowing. And I'm like, I didn't think the record was going to be a sleeper hit, but people liked it. People liked it. And I'm like, I wish people would talk about other records on the album besides that one. But like you said, that's the record that people gravitated to. Because anytime people see me online, "Oh, Mr. 101 Things," and I'm like, damn, but I guess I can't escape it. So
Well, that's nice to be recognized, though, and just the path that you just shared. you know, there's definitely an aftermath I want to get into because that was like a momentum builder. Like you were inclining, and then we have this, you know, absent era, a little period at that time. But before we get to that, I just wanted to say, you know, making that EP or those 7-track stretch with $5,000. Who did you work with? Who were your producers? Do you remember? Who were the people you went to use that money?
One guy, his name was Caesar. He's no longer with us. He passed away years ago. Rest in peace, Caesar. He lived in Queensbridge.
Okay.
He grew up around the Marley Malls and the Nas's, and like he was right there in that whole era before they like he was in the Juice Crew era. He knew a lot of those dudes, and he had a room full of equipment or whatever. And I know his ear for beats was really, really dope. Like if I wish I could get some of those songs that we did early on that people would never hear the light of day of. Like he would take a James Brown sample and flip it and stretch it and make it sound so dope. Like he took the Big Payback and he flipped it so dope. And then he added remember the Patrice Rushen, You Remind Me?
Mm-hmm.
He took those two records and blended them together. He played me the beat one day and then chopped up In Peace the President and played me the beat. And I'm like, dude, this is amazing, boy. He was like, look where I grew up at. He said, I've been listening to these dudes forever. So I developed my ear from them, but I got my own ear for sound too. And the song we did off of that was a song, an anti-crack song called Violence, VIAL, like in crack vial, dash ENCE. Dude, I wish people could hear that song. That song was incredible. The only person I know that might have a copy of that song is my cousin Larry. And I've been trying for the longest to get this dude to dig through his tapes because he got tapes upon tapes upon tapes. And I know he has that song on tape somewhere. So Larry, if you seeing this, and I'm gonna reach out to you again tonight after this, even if I can get it on tape, dude, I think people need to hear that song because I wrote so convincingly to that song. It was based on I wrote it about my brother who was in the street at the time doing his thing.
Okay.
And he would disappear from the hood and go do his thing and then come back. And I remember spitting it to them one night in the hood. One of my boys actually was like, damn, man, I didn't know your brother got killed. Because at the end of the song, I made the dude he got shot, you know, as a victim of the street violence. And this dude, I guess it was so convincing. He really thought my brother, and I'm like, bro, it's just a song. And he was like, dude, that's dope. He was like, that is a dope song. And like I said, the producer, Caesar, and there was a couple of other producers that I messed with, that were doing beats and like I said, they reached out and I would give them like, bro, I can only give you like 500, 750. They would take it because, you know, they weren't doing anything. They were just making beats for the love of hip hop. And I reach out and give them like, bro, okay, I'll 2 beats. I'm gonna give you 1,500, or 2 beats. I give you 1,000. I'm not gonna say there's a guarantee that they'll be on the album, but you're gonna get paid. You know what I mean? So I always want to look out I always love unknown producers. Like even with the stuff I do now, it would be nice to have a Premier beat or a Pete Rock beat or a RZA beat or one of them. But if I can reach out and help somebody that's unknown that I think is dope, I help them to get their name out there and further it and try to further their career.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was all unknown producers, and we made it work, bro. We made it work. And then once I got put on to American, you know, bigger budget, they asked me did I still want to use a bunch of, you know, big name producers. And I was in the mind frame where it was like, dude, if it's not broke, you know, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I still wanted to reach out to producers that I thought were dope, as well as me dabbling a little bit in production myself. But they got me the LAJ. You know, LAJ, Farside Fame. They got me the LAJ. They got me the who else? But Tony D, who I had used one of his beats on the demo that I did. So they reached out there. He was like, you fit good on Tony D's beats. So we'll reach out to Tony D and see if we can get him. The Baker Boys, who were big at the time in LA with their radio show, they did 2 of the songs on the album. So, you know, I had my pick as far as different dope producers, but I like the producers that I liked, and I'm like, bro, I don't want to use all of this money to, pay this person, that person. Y'all pick me producers. If I like their beats, I'll use them. And I got my own team of producers that I want to use. Plus, I want to dabble a little bit myself. So I think all in all, production-wise, it was a well-rounded album.
Come on, Larry. Larry, find the tape, man. We want to hear the rest of the hidden gems, man.
Yeah, he has a couple of songs. Like Larry's probably the only person, the song on my album, Skincare, that I produced with all of the me self-editing myself. Larry's probably the only person that has the unedited version of that. I know American might have it somewhere in their archives, but Larry has the unedited version with all the curses and whatnot that I really want people to hear, because people thought I was a fool for doing that. Like, dude, why would you edit yourself? I'm like, just to show that I can do it.
Mm-hmm.
All of that and you heard doing, I did that while I was rhyming in the studio. There was no stopping and me just doing the edits after the fact. All of that, and I was doing that with my own voice because I think I was a fucking nut.
Yeah, that's a lot of verbal dexterity, man, to be able to be in a word, like bleep it out.
That I could do, that I was just a well-rounded MC, that I could do so much different stuff. I don't know, boy. I just, like I said, I was so full of creativity back then. I just was like, if I shot them my idea and they liked it, especially Dan, me and Dan worked hand in hand. So Dan wasn't really a negative Ned for nothing I did. If I shot him my idea, Dan, I want to do a song about this. He find me the beat, or I was like, all right, I already got the beat for it. I freestyle to give him somewhere the idea. It's dope. Let's do it.
So okay, so let me preface because I want to get to also the American, the absence immediately after 101 Things to Do. But give me, you get off the plane, your ears are popped from all the juicy fruit. You touch down in the city of Palms, my hometown in LA, and what's it like breathing in the LA air, the Southern Cal air? What did you do when you got there? Were you like?
It was amazing, bro. It was culture shock, because like I said, I'd never been anywhere except for down south, and down south has its own flavor or whatever. You go down there and it's all trees and grass and dirt and animals all over the place. But going to Cali, it was like, especially when I went, NWA had popped off here, and the Boys in the Hood, movie was prevalent here, and then Menace to Society was prevalent here, and being the East Coast dude, you like, okay, that's all movies and shit. That shit don't really go on out there every day. They took me to a lot of the spots.
Yeah.
Like I remember I asked them, I said I wanted to go to Crenshaw and Normandy. They took me to Crenshaw and Normandy and parked up. Dan drove, and I'm like, holy shit, this shit is real. Like, it really, and you see the dudes with the you see the Bloods and the Crips and all of that, and I'm like, oh shit, this shit is real. Like, this ain't no Hollywood shit. This shit's real. I remember getting off the plane. I think I had on all blue. The first thing Dan told me was like, you got to change your outfit. And I was like, he was like, go to your hotel. He said, put on a different shirt or something. Maybe put on a white shirt or but he said, you can't walk around out here with all that blue on. He said that shit's not just a movie. He said it's a way of life out here. He said that's not a movie. Yeah. And I'm like, oh shit, it's real. Then I heard about the weed and how dope the weed was. And I got a taste of the weed, and it was like, oh yeah. I said I could dig it out here. I said this is definitely dope, man. They took me to City Walk the first day I was there. I remember that's when I first met the Baker Boys. Him and the Baker Boys took me to City Walk, and I thought that was amazing because we didn't have anything like that in New York, where you got all these different, I guess you call them amusements. They had the booth where you can make your own record, and then you got like the amusement rides, and you got this type of food here and this. And I thought it was amazing. Mm-hmm. And I always remember that trip, that first time touching down, because Judgment Night, remember that movie?
Yeah.
Had just came out. And I remember they took me to see Judgment Night that first day I was there. And that movie definitely helped me get a bunch of ideas too, because they were blending rock and hip hop in the movie. The soundtrack was amazing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, that movie helped me formulate a few ideas for stuff that I wanted to put on the album too. So just the whole vibe and me being out there, I definitely know being out there helped me further my thinking and the mindset I wanted to be on making the album. Because me being in New York, I don't think it would have. I think it would have been a one-sided album a little bit. But going out there and experiencing culture shock and seeing all of the stuff that was going on out there, and riding around in the cars, and seeing everything that was going on, it helped me, I think, formulate more so the second half of the album with the darker side of it. It helped me formulate the darker side. So I appreciate going out there.
Mm,
Definitely.
that's a great insight. That's good to know how that worked its way through you, and you got to have a whole new awareness of seeing things in LA. Yeah.
Mhm.
Um, okay. Was there any artists did you meet up with before we move on? Like people you met when you went out there or anything like that? I know you were kind of new
Yeah, I was
before your
new
stuff
on the
came.
scene. I mean, people knew me out in New York,
Mhm.
but hardly nobody knew me out there. The promo single we had put out, Lubrication, had did well in Chicago and in the Midwest. I think I got a few spins out in LA and people were playing the Lubrication single, but that was just a promo single. And then the battle, the second side of it was the Anatomy of an Ass Whooping single. And I remember people knew about me from that, because I remember going to a couple of different radio shows, because I was only supposed to stay in LA for maybe a week. And I remember staying in LA for like 3.5, almost a month. I almost missed Thanksgiving because I didn't want to come back. Yeah, I went out there like mid-October, and I like early October. Now look, I wanted to stay, bro.
Yeah.
I loved it out there. That's where the misconception comes with people thinking. A lot of people think I'm from LA. Like when you see certain bios back then, people was like, "Oh, I was fresh out of LA," and I'm like, "No, bro, I'm from New York." But I spent so much time out there and got to know so many people, like especially radio personality, and not so many MCs, but just radio personality and DJs and engineers and producers and whatnot. People started thinking I was from out there.
Well, those are all the people you want to know to have a nice
Yeah,
recording career anyway, you
yeah,
know.
bro.
And just to piggyback off what you said, I could see that too, because you were there. There was some universal hip hoppers from LA, from the West Coast, and we have even the Crenshaw, that area. There's hip hoppers who are totally aware of gang life and part of the neighborhood, but just not
Mhm.
affiliated with the gang life. So like, I could see you being in the mix with the Alcoholics or Another Level or the Nonce, people like that,
Oh,
Freestyle
my little, yeah,
Fellowship.
little mates.
Uh, yeah, like you guys were all outside
On
the
the same, in the same vein, yeah.
no
We're all in the
box.
same vein as far as just thinking. And I wish I had connected with a lot of those dudes, because after the fact, down the line, years later, I found out that like Hyro were fans. I was a big fan of Hieroglyphics. That whole squad was amazing. I
Hmm.
found out later on down the line they were fans. I've spoken to uh I think it was Tash. I've spoken to Tash online, in the last few years, and he was a fan. I wish I had met all of those dudes like in volume 10.
Hmm.
I wish I had met a lot of those dudes, because those dudes would do. I think if I had met those dudes and had the pressure had been put on American with me, collaborating with a lot of those dudes, you would have heard the album a lot sooner.
Yeah,
Or I might have branched off and did stuff with them, and my name would have been further.
yeah. I could see that. I could imagine that. That's man. Yeah, because those are all generally everybody you mentioned that I know are very
Mhm.
open, collaborative, friendly people who would want to work, and especially if they admired you and they're telling you that now. Oh man, the possibilities at that time, I, that's something to think about. You know. Um, well, let me kind of shift just a little bit forward. Um, so we record the album. We talked about the single, not the album. We recorded the single.
Mhm.
Is the single done? and then you record the rest of the album, or is everything done and you just put the single out? How's this?
I think like the majority of the album was done.
Uh-huh.
We decided on, well, they decided on 101 Things. I really didn't want 101 Things to be the single, but they thought that would be the best song to put out at the time. So we shot the video here in New York, and it got a little play on different, I was at, look, Video Music Box. I don't know if you know about Video Music Box out here. That's the state. Ralph McDaniel, yeah, big kid. So if you got your video on Video Music Box out here, you were somebody. So I remember watching it after the video came out, maybe a couple of weeks later, it was on there, and I'm like, holy shit, I made it a little bit. I made it. It was on it, even though it was at the very end of one of the episodes, and I think they faded it out after like the second verse. They didn't even show the whole video. I think later on down the line they showed the whole video, but I'm like, dude, I was geeked that they even showed it on there. So I started walking around a little bit with my ass on my back because I thought I was that dude. I'm like, oh, I was on Video Music Box, bro. Then I heard the other video outlets had it, and it was on the box. Remember the thing you could dial up and request videos?
Yeah, the box.
It was on the box. And I'm like, okay, it was dope. I was riding a little bit of that wave. And then I remember we had dropped the Lubrication single before that. And I remember Funkmaster Flex playing Lubrication. And I thought that was just amazing. Then I know later on, I think he played 101 after they had started servicing it to different DJs and different radio stations. I remember he played that, and I was geeked. I was really geeked about it. But here's where we're going into the whole hiatus thing. I think that.
Okay. Go ahead. Well, I was gonna say, yeah, because I want to kind of preface it, because the single's out. You just shared with us that you recorded most of the album. Going to the pause era of like what so I mean, that's a big deal. Let me just say for the viewers and listeners, Ralph McDaniel's show is very significant. It's a legendary program, even though it's limited viewing in New York and that region, but everybody knows him and appreciates him. And so to get on there, that is a big deal. Of course, Funkmaster Flex, to get on his radio show at the time was huge. That seems like great momentum. Share, and also share a little bit about, what was the relationship like? I mean, it had to be, I don't know, it had to be, but I can imagine it being kind of strained, or like you maybe asking questions to the label and your personnel, like, yo, do we got any date, or, go ahead. I just wanted to set that up.
It was a little frustrating because the album was already done. It was in the can. They had shot the video. The video did somewhat well. Well, I don't know what happened. Tell you the truth, I don't know. Like I said, at first, I don't think they saw a lot of single potential on the album, because, like I said, a lot of the stuff on the album, they didn't see what I saw. There were a couple of different songs on the album, like This and That, the song that LAJ produced. I thought that would have made a dope single. 125 pennies for your thoughts. When me running through the train station and jumping the turnstile, I think that would have made a dope single. It would have been an act. That could have been a dope video, dope action video, because everything was like, people were making like little movie videos at the time. So I'm like, I don't know if they didn't want to just spend the money, if they had went over budget with the album. I don't know what it was, but dude, I was frustrated. And the album sat there. It was supposed to have came out in '94.
When in '94? Like what, fall, summer? What do you?
Could have came out in like spring or summer of '94.
Okay.
Because it was already done. It was done in like the end of '93, like finished up in early '94. So it should have came out at least spring, summer '94, but nothing happened. And dude, I'm talking back and forth to them. Dan's telling me, oh, we got this going on and that going on. And dude, it was frustrating. But I never stopped. I was still doing shows, doing a little bit of shows and still going to battles here and there. But, my frustration level was up here. So I'm talking back and forth to them, around like end of '95. He calls me he goes, okay, we got a little bit more money to do. We need you to do a couple more songs. And I floated the idea. I said, dude, the album been sitting for a year already. I'm not happy with all the material on the album. Let's focus on less female sex-oriented songs. Let's take a lot of those off of there. Because they were trying to market it like that.
This is you talking?
Yeah.
You felt like some of your material had timed out a little bit for what you want to do now.
And it was dated. And I'm like, I've progressed as an MC.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like when we did What's the Reaction? The song was dope. I felt that my growth as an MC then, I could show people that I had grown. So they were like, okay, do a remix of What's the Reaction? Mm-hmm. The remix of What's the Reaction was way more lyrical. Like the original What's the Reaction was a party song. The remix was on some lyrical shit, showing that I've grown as an MC. Like that was my like thing. Like, okay, boom, this is where I'm at now. I was always lyrical, but I'm on a whole nother level writing wise now. Like my pen is definitely different now. Let's focus on the girls. I can still do the stories and everything, but I want to show you that I'm nice. Right. I'm growing. So we did the What's the Reaction remix. We doing most of the songs that ended up on these are my unreleased recordings. I think I did at least a block of like 6 or 7 more songs, little or no budget, low budget, submitted them. I even did songs when I went, like when he called me, he flew me back out there, like late 95. I did songs here. I did songs in Cali with DJ Homicide, who went on to work for Sugar Ray. Mm-hmm. He produced a bunch of the songs that were on the unreleased EP, and I think that a lot of those songs would have been dope if they had been mixed in with the album. Would have made it a more complete album, on my part at least. And I think it would have been more received. It would have been better received than it was. And by the time the album came out, they just wanted to keep it. They had me do all these songs, and then kept the album the same. So I was pissed, bro.
Yeah,
you had me sit for 2 years.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you had me sit for 2 years. Do all this new material. You had me thinking that we're gonna cut some of these songs and do a whole, make a whole new intermingled album. And it came out the exact same way it was when I dropped it off in '94.
I don't mean to, well, I guess I am speculating, but I was just wondering, have you ever speculated that maybe like when you were recording and came out, you were right there at the beginning of the onslaught of labels just signing kill black people, kill each other, dope era, just a downgrade in hip hop's multi-dimensionality. Have you ever thought about maybe, they got cold feet, or what do you
It might have been, no, it might, like I said, it might have been because they had left it wasn't, nobody was making funny songs anymore.
Right.
It was all serious. It was the keep it real era.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I think they might have thought, okay, we don't know what to do with this album because it's this, that, but that's why I gave them the alternative with all these new songs. I'm giving you more songs that you can pick and choose. Like, hey, let's take off these 2. Of course, this, that, and the third. Okay, let's put these songs on it. This will fit more, make the album flow more. Okay, if we're gonna put it out as a 2-year-old album, you'll see its progression from '94 to '96.
Right.
And I even had it structured in my head where it was like, okay, we can start off with the '94 songs, go into the '95 songs. The end of it will be the '96 songs.
Yeah.
'95, slate '96 song, and it'll make it more of a complete album. They didn't hear it.
So are you at this time? You have, this is my first album, my first release. Are you your only advocate? Did you have a manager, or was there anybody who was an advocate for you as well? Because
I had a management team at the time, but when things started going left and the album got put to the side, you know how it is. Both people start just, if the money ain't coming in and the respect and props ain't coming in, people start treating you different. Okay. Oh, you owe this Quest and you owe that, and I'm like,
oh.
Bro, you know what I mean? So I'm like, yeah, I don't have no money to pay for this, that, and the third, but yet I owe all of this shit. And I'm like, okay, what do you want me to do? Damn. I wasn't working at the time. I mean, and it forced me to kind of sort of leave the lane where it was like, I think I could be an MC full time and start thinking realistically, I got a job.
Right.
Like I started, I went and got a full time. I mean, I had worked, like I said, at the post office before, but I went and got a job. So when the album finally did drop, dude, I was working. Like I was working a full 9 to 5 when my album finally dropped. Yeah.
Wow. So
Mm-hmm.
what can you this and I don't say this to try to conjure up, feelings about that, but I'm just trying to capture what this does to a person, because I think somebody viewing this can learn from, or any of our experiences can help somebody else. But I'm just wondering, like, what is that? How is that affecting your psyche? Like, you completed some work, you're very enthusiastic, you're young, and go getting it, and then you have to pick up a job, and your album comes out late with very poor promotion. I do remember that too. It's like they just put it out just to finally get
Yeah.
get rid of it, get it off the shelf, and we'll see
You
what
know why it
happens.
came out?
Go ahead.
The reason the album came out,
Mm-hmm.
Sheena Lester, God bless you, the editor of Rap Pages.
Mm.
They wanted to give me the cover before, and then once they had gave me a write up, I think maybe a year or so before, like just a write up about me being, I think it was a single or whatever. They wanted to give me the cover, but she told them if I don't have a set release date, we're not giving him the cover.
Mm.
We'll write a blurb about him, write a story about him, but we wanted to do a cover for Quest for a minute. But if you're not gonna put the album out, we're not gonna do it. So, dude, I didn't even know at the time that was going on. And then one of my boys put me on, recently. I was the only MC. I don't know if it's still true now, but I was the only MC that had the cover of a major magazine and an album hadn't been put out. Like the album dropped later, like maybe a few months later, because I got the cover. That's the only reason that the album dropped. I think if I had never got the cover, the album would have been shelved indefinitely.
Wow.
Yeah, bro.
So then they were just trying to ride some of the fame you got from the cover and see what happens with the sales and all
Yep.
that.
But like you said, no promotion,
Mm-hmm.
no real pushback. The album just was put out. And of course it wasn't received well. I mean, people that knew and were checking for me checked, but it would have did a lot better if you had to put the promotion. But like I said, I think that they thought they had spent enough money on it. Then they had other projects they were working on, and the times had changed, and they had other MCs that they were messing around with, and other projects they wanted to do. So it was let's just put it out. He got the cover. We got to put it out. We got to live up to our end of the bargain. Let's just put it out.
That's indicative of the how the eons of music changed in the matter of 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
Because we think like what Outcast AT Aliens was out in '96, like it was a whole shift just from '94 to '96.
Yeah.
And Raekwon and them kind of set that in '95 with Only Built and like
Yep.
the Jizza and them. It was like a whole shift. And right after that comes the platinum era with Master P and P Diddy and all the shiny suits, and like that was a very that 2 years is critical. It was very critical,
Because like I said, in those 2 years, who knows what would have happened? I'm pretty sure I would have worked on a second album, maybe not with them, but with somebody else, and my name would have been further out there. But like I said, politics and me just sitting back and not wanting to. After that whole fiasco, I just was like, boy, I wanted to give up. I mean, I still wanted to rock with local stuff and still doing battles and radio shows and all of that, but my momentum as a trying to be a full-fledged MC was like it was shot. Right. So I stopped doing it. Like they would send me tickets to go places. I'll leave them shits on my dresser and go nowhere. They set up shows for me. Like y'all ain't working with me. I'm not working with you. I'm going to the show. Wouldn't show up. Yeah, you dead at me, so I'm dead in you. And after a little while of this, I was like, I can't be stuck here, because even if I wanted to get signed to another label, I can't, because they holding me, quote unquote, by the cojones. Mm-hmm. So I had heard about Rap Coalition. Wendy did. Yeah, definitely, bro. I reached out to her. Didn't know her. I just had heard about the stories of people that she had helped and, you know, deals she had did and whatever. She went, you know, with her help, I got taken. I got off of Warner. I didn't owe them nothing. They didn't owe me anything, and I got released.
Dang. So that's awesome. Thank you, Wendy Day, and you know, thanks for all your
Without
service.
Wendy, it wouldn't have been a phase two of Quest because Wendy was instrumental with me going to radio shows and still doing stuff, and me going to Chicago and riding the momentum of the album or whatever. Even though it wasn't promoted well, people out there knew. And I met Rhymefest. That's how I met Rhymefest and met Vakil and a lot of dope Chicago MCs that I became cool with. And her setting up the thing with Rap, you know, that set up the stage for Rap Olympics.
Mm-hmm. Now, before I want to get to that too, because that's also a legendary event and, you know, moment in time. Are you feeling at this time? Are you feeling in that 96, 97 window? Are you feeling like spent or exhausted or like, you know, like that's it? My, you know, there ain't gonna be no more corporate or, you know, rapping career.
I know I was soured on industry stuff. If I had got approached by another label to do anything, it would have had to be more so on my terms and less on what they wanted. I mean, even though, like I said, I give American props because they gave me a lot of creative freedom to do what I wanted. But in the end, dude, was all the creative freedom is dope. But if you're not gonna put it out in a timely manner, then what was the use? You should have just had me say, Quest, we want to do this, this, and this, and I would have did that, and I might add a second album if I'd have let them structure it.
Okay. Man, what a path to be on. That's we've heard so many horror stories of the recording industry dating back to the 50s and stuff, and this is just you know, just the anticipation. Again, I can't repeat it enough because people were really and people are excited now that we're gonna get into, you know, you being active again, but just that era was such an opportunistic moment for a lot of people. A lot of careers remain intact from just that era. But you didn't stop. You just kind of pulled your hat down lower and you got into Rap Olympics and you were battling. You were on circuits. You know, you competed against people like Eminem and others at that time before they got signed. Shabam Sadiq, all these people. Were you around this circle, or what was that like?
Yeah, I'm not so much battling with M and Shabam. Just I think me starting out as an underground MC, and then getting to that right there, and then the shit just being snatched out from under me. I went back to what I knew, to the underground. You know what I mean? Where I got my start, and it was like I wasn't trying to be. Even if I had got signed and had got big dude, I still would have tried to be on some underground shit because I've always been other. You know what I mean? I wouldn't have been one of those dudes to get big and then forget about where I came from. I still would have been on some underground, doing things crazy and doing things, you know, not trying to conform to what the industry wanted. So I think a lot of my peers at the time reached out and they respected that I was still trying to rhyme and still trying to be different, and I didn't let it sour me 100,000%. I was still in battle, still battling people, still going in the parks and doing ciphers, still going and doing radio shows or whatever. I wasn't letting it get me down. I mean, it was inside it tore me up a little bit, but I wasn't letting it show on the outside where it got me down. And Shabam at least this was this was after Rap Olympics. When Wendy, me and Wendy became really cool, and I started going with her to a lot of different shows, and she started doing something called a Musicians Union with every Friday in New York. She would just have an open mic forum for like 3-4 hours. She'd get different producers to come and provide beats, and anybody that wanted to come rhyme could come rhyme. And this way she started formulating the idea for Rap Olympics. She was like, you should do something where it was nationwide. Crews of MC just go against one another and we see who comes out on top. And she had already kind of sort of picked our team with me, Thurston Howard III, Wordsworth, and then she took Juice from Chicago, but we needed 5. And she told me about an MC that she had met from Detroit, and that she said, Quest, you gotta like him because he's on the same, like on that crazy shit that you're on, and he's white. And I'm like, is he nice? And she was like, you gotta judge that. So he came to New York. This is some funny shit. I remember this.
Okay.
Came in New York that Friday, and he came with Paul Rosenberg. And I see him come in, and he looked, like laid back and like kind of not so much awkward, but just like out of element or whatever. And I'm like, okay, she said this dude is dope. I want to hear how dope this dude is. Yeah. And then she was like, she said, I want to put him on the team, but y'all let us know. And we were there. All the other former team members, I think Juice was the only one that wasn't there. And he started rhyming. Dude, we knew. We was like, fuck yeah. Like, yo, nobody's gonna expect this. Nobody's gonna expect this to be coming out of this dude's mouth. And I was like, he's dope. So we got the team right there. We went to Cali. We didn't win. Dude, he made a good enough showing, and he was just ripping through dudes with the stylish shit. And it's kind of sort of funny because he reminded me of me when I first started. Like I said, I used to pick apart dudes and just look at people from head to toe and just shit on dudes. And I'm like, dude, somebody else gets it. I said, I hadn't heard a lot of people doing it. And I'm like, he got it. That's dope. I said, I thought I was the only person that would do something crazy like that. And I said, he gets it. I said, but he's taking it to the next level where he's just shredding them. And I'm like, that's amazing. We didn't win, like I said. We went up to 92.3 to beat that night. And I had been up there before. People had heard me rhyme in Cali multiple times because I had been to a bunch of radio shows in Cali and people knew about me. But I was like, dude, I want people to hear my team. Because I don't know if people had heard of a Thurston Howell, had heard of a Wordsworth or even Juice or whatever. I mean, we all had our respective names for us and our regions or whatever, but this was West Coast. So I was like, we gotta shine. And everybody did their thing. He came up, dude, the whole room was like, holy shit. For real?
Who beat y'all in the Rap Olympics? Who won? Do you remember?
It was a West Coast team. I don't remember the team, but it was a West. And you know what's crazy? Because remember we went out there and it was a year or so after the whole Biggie and Tupac thing had happened. Yeah. So it was that shit was still prevalent. And it was like, we knew what we were walking into because it was like, damn, it's a whole team of basically East Coast, left coast people coming out here. Well, left coast coming out to the West Coast. And we kind of knew what we were walking into, but we also knew that we had a team that was all fortified and we all had our different strengths. Right. Because we were all different. We weren't the same team of 5 dudes. Everybody had their own style and their own uniqueness or whatever. So it was like, we're going to bring it. And I really thought that we were going to win, but it didn't happen. But we redeemed ourselves that night at the radio station, and people said, I wish that's another show. I know somebody out there has that whole show in its entirety. I know somebody has it because online on YouTube, they only have the Eminem part that I've seen. I've only seen his part, but I know somebody got that show. Dude, I want people to hear that show too.
Well, were you guys on Power or The Beat or what station was it?
92.3 The Beat.
Okay. Somebody got it. Come on, somebody.
Look, I'm going to leave that up to you, bro. You a West Coast affiliate. Reach out to your peoples and try to, somebody got that show.
I'm going to tag it in the video, too. I'll tag it in the video.
There was a video shot of it, so I know somebody got video or audio or both of it.
Okay. Well, we got to find, and Larry, we got some searching to do, digging to do. You mentioned Wordsworth. Did you get a chance to check out his publication, his new book? Yeah?
That's going to be Peoples for Life, bro. I'm proud of him. I'm proud of Thurston. I'm proud of Juice, dude. Like I always tell people, that team and that whole era, those dudes gave me back a little bit of a lot of my confidence because like I said, I was still reeling from the whole American fiasco or whatever, and just being around so many creative dudes and seeing that they were so different and they wasn't on the same wavelength that everybody else was on at the time, and they were doing their own thing on their own lanes. It helped me get my confidence back somewhat and try to be the Kwest The Madd Lad that people knew, and still be different and be that this is your lane. Don't be like nobody else. And dude, I love those dudes. Anything those dudes do, I'll support them to the fullest. And those are my brothers for life. Even Eminem, I haven't spoken to him, and I don't know if he even remembers me or knows anything about me from, but dude, he wrote about me in his book.
Oh,
I think this shit was crazy because when he had a book out, when he first like got that superstar icon level, he put out a book, I think it was called The Dark Side of Eminem, and he spoke about the Rap Olympics battle, and he mentioned the only kid that he thought could beat him was a kid from Queens named Kwest The Madd Lad. Dude, and that shit right there is just fucking amazing because I didn't even think he thought about me like that, like formidable competition or whatever. And I'm like, oh shit, okay.
Wow. Wow. Okay, we gotta find a way to reunite some situations here and just say hello. Say hello to people, just let everybody still alive, let's before it's too late. How about let me ask you this, how about, are you in touch with Wendy Day, or do you ever get to communicate?
Yeah, I speak to Wendy online on a regular basis. I still got mad love for her. Like I said, I'm gonna always love her because she got me out of a bad situation and helped, like I said, help the second coming of Quest, because I was gonna stop. And then around this time too, like 98, 99, my mom passed away. That was a big, big blow to me because people that know me know how I felt about my mother and everything. And with what had happened, and then my career not being as much as, because she was a big push and she loved like she heard my album, even though it was a vulgar and everything. She was like, that's something you wanted to do. I'm glad you did what you wanted to do. She said, you set out to do what you wanted to do, and I'm proud of you. And she liked hip hop. She listened, like one of her favorite artists was Snoop. She liked Snoop and everything. So I'm like, I'm glad she was there to support me. But when she passed, it kind of sort of hammered the nail into the coffin a little bit. And that was like 99, 2000. And I didn't want to do shit after that. That's where the hiatus set in. Like, I did sporadic things just because it was on the strength of me. Somebody I knew wanted me to do something with them, or there was a little money involved in it. And I was like, you know what? I could use the money, and plus give me a chance to keep my name out there, let people know I'm still here. I didn't just fall off the face of the earth. But that took a toll. And James DL, he had a mixtape series back then called Eddie L and DL, and anybody back in New York at the time, like 98, 99, 2000, 2001, 2002, was on these mixtapes. He heard about me and he knew about me. He's one of the reasons that I got put on the 5-Star Generals thing, I think, because they had heard of me. And Shabam, I know Shabam had rhymed on the mixtape series. And then, like I said, this was right before M-Hat blew up, and we all came together and did the 5-Star Generals thing, which is a classic. Thank you, Shabam, for putting me on that. I did stuff with Rock One, who was signed to Fondlem. I did stuff with El Fudge, who was signed to not Fondlem, signed to, the hell is the name of the label? I'm sorry.
Take your time.
You know the label. Pharaoh Monch was, Ruckus. Sorry, hip hop guys. I'm fading out a little.
We're covering a lot of stuff. It's all right.
I got a chance to be on that side, to be on a couple of Ruckus songs, and then that led to me being on the Lyricist Lounge album and doing stuff with various producers. I did stuff with DJ Yoda, and I did stuff with Self-Titled, and I did stuff with French producers, and I still kept my name out there sporadically. And then James, he came up with the idea, like, can you get a hold of all of these unreleased songs that you never put out? Let's put the album out. So I reached back out to Dan, and we had a meeting. And
part two, the second album?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. This is the unreleased recordings, and he helped me get all of that stuff from the label. And with his help and Dan reaching out and helping, because I hated Dan Charnas at the time, but he redeemed himself and got me all of these masters and all these songs that he still had hands on, and helped me put together that second album. So
I was gonna say real quick, you've been very polite and respectful as far as personnel and American. And I was like,
dude, I don't have no animosity towards him, because like I said, I knew Q-Tip spoke on it. Industry rule number 4080. There was a magazine called 4080.
that was a
Dude,
good magazine too. Yeah.
I knew that shit couldn't always be on the up and up and up. I knew if I was getting there and, it's like, okay, you're an unknown and you don't have no super backing or whatever, and you're working with a label that is known for signing like weird shit and doing stuff. So it's eventually gonna be a fall. And I'm like, I didn't anticipate it, but I wasn't just like, it's not gonna happen to me. I'm gonna be a superstar, because dude, I wasn't prepared to be a superstar if that had to happen. I like being me. I like walking the streets. I like going to stores and buying sneakers. I don't want to be mobbed by nobody. I like riding the trains and riding the buses and doing my own thing. So I don't think I would have been prepared if it had took off the way people thought it was going to take off, and I would have been that next thing like a lot of people said I was supposed to be. I wouldn't have been prepared for that. So maybe it happened for a reason. You know what I mean? Maybe things happen for a reason. Maybe I was supposed to reach that height and then just not be that dude that everybody thought I was going to be. I'm happy with where I'm at now, where my place is in hip hop now. I might not be super solidified. I'm happy where it is now, bro.
Well, that's great to hear, because people, it's easy to become embittered, especially when people who you embrace do you wrong or neglect. People try to gloss over this like it doesn't matter. Even the hardest people we know, but it's like that has an impact on you. You can look at our brother DMX, who rests in peace now, and all the emotions that man had in him, and tried. He would show it, but I mean, it's like horrible stuff that he endured, and we all react to it different. We all have different ways we deal with that. But it's very nice to hear, that it hasn't, things don't break everybody. Sometimes you get stronger, or you're not one dimensional. So if this isn't working over here, I'm gonna go over here and keep it moving. And so
even after the second album came out and it was released to a limited, it was only on CD, and it didn't do as well as I thought it would be. I even read a couple of reviews where people were like, "Oh, we didn't want to hear from Kwest again," and I'm like, "Okay, bro, that's you. I'm not bitter about that shit. Whether one person bought it or 1,000,001 people bought it, I'm happy somebody purchased it."
Yeah.
And by then I had been working for the longest. I had a full-time job. I'm at the job now that I was working with when I back then. I've been in my current job for 17 years.
Nice.
You know what I mean? So I'm like, it's not like I was at a loss for money and I got benefits and all that shit. And I'm happy with what transpired. But do that from like 2008 to like 2016, 17. I was done with hip hop. I was still a fan. I'm always going to be a fan first and foremost, but I was done. And it's the third coming. I was never a social media person at all. I got onto everything late. Facebook had been out for what, 6, 7 years, probably 8 years, from like 2008, 2009. Facebook was created, or probably earlier than that. Dude, I joined Facebook in like 2016.
I think I added you the day you got on, and I've been sitting there for like 4 years waiting on you.
And yeah, we never chopped it up. That's crazy, right?
well, I wasn't. You just added me the other day. So that's
I know it's crazy
because
and I'm gonna go into the story of that too.
Okay.
MySpace had been popping for the longest. I joined MySpace the year before the shit shut down.
Oh, really? You thought you were doing something.
I used to hear so many stories about people on MySpace blowing up and being famous, and I was never, like I said, it was a little bit of resentment towards the industry for what had happened. Like I said, I was still a fan, and I was never a super big fan of the 2000s era music. Like, I liked a lot of the stuff that came out, in that era, but I stopped listening for a long time to a lot of shit. Like I kept my ear to what was going on, but I wasn't really buying albums. I wasn't listening to the radio a lot then. I got more into rock, like Portishead, Radiohead, old rock. One of my favorite albums, anybody can tell you, is Kid A. Kid A is like in my top 3 favorite albums of all time. Portishead, all 3 of their albums on my top 10 albums of all time. Like I got more into progressive rock and experimental rock, and rhyming wise, that helped me too because it helped me patterns. And dude, don't get me wrong, I was still writing. I just wasn't doing anything with it. Like I used to walk around with a pocket full of papers with just rhymes and rhymes and rhymes on them, but wasn't doing anything with them.
Where's that? Where is that at? Where's that notebook?
This is what I'm going to.
Okay. Let me lean back and listen.
You good? When I joined Facebook at the urgings of my dude, Mr. Live. Mr. Live and Tony Bones were signed to Profile back in the days. I'm pretty sure if you look up Mr. Live, you'll know who he is. He had a song called Super Duper on Profile that was dope. That's some trivia for people too. If you don't know who Mr. Live is, look up Mr. Live. His records, even the records he put out now are dope. He's still working.
What year is that? About late 90s or earlier?
I think it was mid 90s.
Mid 90s?
90s, yeah.
Okay.
Tony Bones too. Tony Bones was an MC from London. That was dope. They were on Stretch and Bobbito too. They were during the Stretch and Bobbito era from like 90 to 95, 96. They were during the heyday of Stretch and Bob era.
Okay.
I was following certain people on Facebook, but I was going by my government name. Didn't put Kwest The Madd Lad up there. I found him and was following him. And one day someone was like, Quest, just reach out to him and let him know who you are. You and him haven't spoken in 10, 15 plus years. Reached out to him on Messenger. He was amazed that it was me. We chopped it up for like an hour or two, talking on the phone and everything. He said, Quest, do me a favor. Put your name on there as your own name. Put Kwest The Madd Lad. He said, you'll be surprised how many people love you and how many people want to hear from you again. So I did it. I put Kwest Madd Lad. Through the first day, I think I must have got like 100 plus friend requests on back. They were just coming back to back to back to back. And I'm like, holy shit, this dude is right. People were, yo, can I send you beats? Yo, are you still working? Are you still doing stuff? Oh shit, I got your first album. Your album was an inspiration to me. Your album helped me get through high school, and your album helped me get through junior. And I'm like, dude, that shit was overwhelming a little bit. I just made some shit and just put it out and didn't know whatever. It was overwhelming, bro. He helped me get out there, and then X-Ray, King Caesar from Monster Island Czars, MF Doom fame, reached out to me and wanted me to be on a couple of his songs. I went out to Queens and started working with him on a couple of his songs. We chopped it up, and we decided to put out a couple more songs, and I reached out to a couple of producers that sent me beats. And in 2019, we put out the Spitter EP. All done by Anyway Jones, a French producer. X did one, I think he did an interlude on it, but he rhymed on it with his group Dog Mind. Dog Mind was signed to Loud Records back in the days, and they were on the Soul and the Whole soundtrack. Dog Mind group. Yeah. I know I've been a fan of them forever. He's the reason I'm back. Because if it wasn't for him reaching out, we wouldn't have heard from me anymore. So that's another reason. That's another guy that I hold in high regard. Well, X, Mindbender Recordings, Organic Poisons, King Caesar, dude, I love you to death, man. Because if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be doing this anymore.
Describe your mind frame when everybody's reaching out. I mean, you know what the females feel like on social media now, because they get blown up with 100 ads and requests and messages every day. And that's a lot. I'm sure it's a lot on anybody. But what compelled you to be like, all right, I'm gonna do it? Because they're asking.
No, it was him. It was dude. He's a legendary dude. He's done stuff from like the 80s on up to 2002. He was instrumental, like Monster Island. Those albums were incredible. He bought when Zev Love X came out, and he went through his rest in peace MF Doom, of course. When he went through his whole transformation into MF Doom, X and King Caesar, X aka King Caesar was right there doing the production with him and Megalon and Guido and all of those dudes and that was a whole nother era in hip hop where it was like, dude, those songs and albums were incredible. So I knew about all of that stuff. Plus I knew about Dark Mind, and I didn't know all the production he did, and I started looking further into it. And I was like, dude, this dude's a legend. So I was like, he reached out to me and want to do something with me. Dude, I'm honored by that. That shit's amazing.
Yeah.
For somebody of that caliber to reach out to me and want to do stuff with me, I'm like, I'm not gonna say no. I never looked at myself as no legend. I still don't. People throw that legend shit on me, and I'm like, well, I'm not no legend. Use that title for somebody like him or MF Dooms or the Thurston Howes and the Wordsworths and all of those dudes. Those dudes are legends in my eye. I'm just a dude that picked up a pen and been following what I've been following and doing what I love from 8th, 9th grade. Ever since I heard Rapper's Delight and Curtis Blow, these are the breaks. I just loved all of it. I'm not no legend, bro.
Well,
not in the least bit.
Let me just say something, because I appreciate your humility. But while we're on this conversation, I just have to say something. This is part of my philosophy, and you can rebuttal if you like. But this is why I don't participate in general top 5 lists. Like, who's your top 5 MCs? And I'm like, if you go, who's my top 5 conscientious MCs, or political MC, or dexterity MC, fastest MC? Like, I could do categories. But and you fit into this philosophy. First of all the rappers you mentioned, everybody we've talked about on this call will always pay tribute to the originators, because they from the 80s and even maybe before that, because we wouldn't be here without them. You wouldn't be rapping the same without Rakim or Melly Mel, and these are just foundation layers. But I wanted to say, like, when we think about Shock G, just rest in peace.
Rest in peace, Shock.
DMX and Black Rob and Shabba-Doo and Ecstasy. Yeah. Yeah, Prince Marky D. Yes. And so I think of all these names, and I'm including you because you captured a moment in time, regardless of if the career extended where we wanted it to go, or if things worked out how we did want them to go or not. There's no replacing. I just have to say it like this. There's no replacing Prince Marky D. There is no, he's in his own dimension, like a lot of like Cool G Rap is, who's never mentioned in the top 5. And he is in his own dimension because your favorite rapper is going to mention him. Nas is going to mention Cool G Rap when he talks about who's the greatest MCs. They're going to mention, and it's not a ranking, it's necessary. So I'll just say, I hear your humility about not being like a legend, but you had a legendary moment and you're in existence still, and that's worthy of respect and recognition and respect. And so it means something because your voice is immortal, okay? DMX's voice is immortal. There's no replacing. You can't shift anybody into his spot or your spot during that time. So that's why I want to reframe that and respect your humility as well, but just say, that's what you mean that. Buckshot Shorty means that. There's just people, you can do whatever you want, and this is the treasure of hip hop. You can't replace, because all of y'all are originals.
Thank you.
There's no, well, that was important. That's part of our culture at that era, that you might be influenced by Diamond Shell Biz, Master Ace, and these guys, Slick Rick, but you still had to have your own signature. And I just feel like that's important because it doesn't dissipate. We remember it. If we felt it, we feel it. So I just wanted to just respond to that. And I appreciate you being humble as well. But as a supportive fan and part of the culture, I want to let you know just the significance. And, we remember you and respect you. And that's why, I've definitely reached out to you. So Just
Thank
want
you,
to
bro.
say that. Take a moment and say that for you and others.
Look, I remember I said about wifey.
Yes. You home? She got in? Okay, no problems. On
No,
family time.
no, can we? Do you want to chop it up further? Because I can do this again tomorrow.
Yeah, we should continue just to wrap up because you have.
We can stop it at one point and then we can chop it up for the rest.
We can take another. Let's take another foray into what's, we come up to the current moment. Let's talk about the
Okay.
future because you have some projects that are waiting for you to breathe life into them, and we could get into that too.
Okay,
So,
cool.
so
Cool.
don't hang up. But we'll end the show, and I want to just
Okay.
thank everybody for taking time. Quest The Madd Lad and I here on What Had Happened Was, and much respect for taking us through the history and your experience. Very rich and a lot of learning. And let me just say this before we go. Let me ask you this. What I always try to end the show with this message. What do you have to say to young people or any kind of mentoring message for people coming behind us? Young people or anybody trying to learn and live life successfully.
The biggest thing I can tell you, bro, know where you came from. Things just didn't start when you were born. There was a whole culture, whatever you're into, there was a whole culture and a whole lifespan before you. And a lot of these young dudes forget, they think that certain stuff started. Oh, hip hop started in 94, hip hop started in 2000. Do your homework, bro, and do your research. And learn about the people that came before us, the pioneers, the forefathers, the females, the males, the DJs, the graph writers, bro, because it'll give you a better, I'm speaking hip hop wise, it'll give you a better insight and it'll make you appreciate this more because, bro, you're making millions of dollars now off of it. There were people that were doing it for nothing, just for the love of it, for the strength. And they were putting money out of their pockets and weren't getting anything back when they were doing it. So always honor the people that came before you, bro, because if it wasn't for them, there would be no you. Real talk.
Thank you so much, Quest, for being on What Had Happened Was. I appreciate you, man.
I appreciate you too, bro. Thank you for having me, man.
And we'll continue and have another second part of the conversation to talk about what's coming, okay?
Okay, thank you.
No doubt. Peace.
Peace, bro.